going to do is ask everybody, what do you see as the next steps for this group? I think each of the questions could lead to a continuing effort. So what would you suggest some of the next steps be related to this question, this idea?
Are you looking at me as if I should start that?
I'm looking at everybody.
On the panel, though.
Everybody on the panel first, and then we'll go to the audience.
All right. Well, since you were looking, I thought I caught your eye looking down here. Well, what are the next steps? Clearly, we have these 4 questions, and we need to just make a decision. Are each one of those worthy of having some working group around them? And the way to test if they're worthy is, does anybody want to join them? So if some of them want to be joined and a working group evolves around them, then I think we should go forward with the ones, because it doesn't help anything to start a group that doesn't do anything. So let's not even try that. But if there's enough people that focus around a particular subject, and those 4 questions would be the first 4 I would suggest that we consider, then they should be carried forward for some period of time, maybe even through till next year when we have another forum like this. The next one is for those 4 working groups, if there are 4, to coordinate with the group that's going to manage this model, that's going to reflect all the output. You know, we have to have some way to consolidate, coordinate, and make something that's visible that we can talk to others about, and not just a bunch of sheets of paper, but something that tells a story. So that might be a 5th group. And then the last one would be try to look for other affiliations, like the KM conference here. I mean, they're going to be doing some great stuff over the next year. They've changed their attitude. Not that they didn't always have a good attitude, and they've been around for 12 years and they've been successful. That's a big thing in KM, to be successful for that long. But this attitude of trying to build a body of knowledge based on all these people that attend and the kinds of information they're giving, and all of these 10 communities that were started more or less around those tables, we're going to see if those sustain themselves. And I expect some of them will, some will not. So let's make that, as you said early on, open. You know,
I have a question. Based on what you just said, it appears that the group has ratified and accepted what's on this piece of paper. Is that correct?
No, not the content, just the concept. The concept of having a. Yeah, we didn't ratify the content of this model as much as we ratified the concept that it would be really nice to document this stuff, have it visible, have it something that we can go to, and it can be in enough depth that it really can bring some clarity.
And to have a model, I think the idea that is being suggested is that we have a progressive learning model for KM, and that it be inclusive of many different levels and types of learning.
And that model was focused on what I was doing on the training side, not the academic side. That's an obvious weakness in terms of where we'd like to go with it.
So maybe one of the next steps for a group that's very interested in this question is to take this model and build it out further to reflect learning directions, credentialing, certification, etc., and to come back. And one of the things that we have done, and we were going to talk about this in the open forum, is in the Ontolog Summit, what we would do is we would break into 4 distinct subcommittees, and each of those committees would have their continuing dialogue, their work plans, etc. Anybody could join, anybody could participate, listen in, and we would expect them to come back to us in about November with their ideas on how to move this forward, and with their new questions for next year. But there would have to be a lot of cross-pollination across the 4 groups, because these questions, I think, as we've seen, are so interconnected.
When you say the 4 questions, are those the questions that you sent out?
The 4 questions are the 4 high-level questions that we were discussing: roles and responsibilities, competencies, curriculum, and then
also called panels on the sheet that you're looking at.
Elements,
4 panels.
and then I've lost what's the bottom thing is. It's been a tough day. I count bosons, muons, and heavy leptons, and these are big. And supporting competencies. Okay.
One of the key to success of that is the group has to be big enough, but also probably somebody has to feel like they are going to champion it, because it's going to take energy. A group will not stay together unless somebody keeps pushing. So I'd say there's 2 criterion for that group to be successful. One is it has sufficient numbers of people that they're going to get something done. The other is somebody's stepping forward as the champion of it, or a couple of people could step forward as the champion. But you really have to have a few people that say, I got the passion to solve that problem.
And it doesn't have to be limited to people who are sitting in this room, because we had, about, 2,600 other people who were monitoring these, and, you can reach out to people who have not been involved yet, who are sort of peripherally or invisibly involved, so build your working group. That would be ideal, for building the whole community. Maybe this group could also come back with recommendations on which groups we need to include in the credentialing or the certification discussions, and whether we need a new body or not.
Well, I guess I'm a little confused, because I don't see how you can do questions 3 and 4 until you've done questions 1 and 2. I can't see how you can do all 4 of them. I just can't.
There's a time dependence. It's got to be worked out first.
Well, if that's true, I think the champions and the people who gathered around that particular group would probably realize that pretty early on and say, okay, we're dependent upon some prior results. Yeah.
Or
Well,
they can
either
make
that, or you
assumptions.
get a group to
Or they can
sit
make-
down and lay out what they think makes sense from a sequential, and then look at it, iterate it, and then go out to the individual groups and say, here's the timing, here's what you need from group A before you can do group C, etc.
Which would be probably very useful for group A, if you had somebody from group D.
Hey, I like the idea of 4 groups kind of working on this and then sharing across them, but I think at the same time, when we come back to perhaps KM World this fall or something like that, perhaps we add a day or 2, I'd sure like to hear an outbrief from each group, sort of a short 30-minute outbrief, tell the story and then give people a chance to react to that, maybe have some pre-read so people can really kind of come prepared and see if we can get to an actual outcome, because I think that's the biggest danger here, is that you can talk it, and not really deliver something.
What if we had an outbrief every month? Because we're going to continue the wiki platform, the webinar, but we could still come back together in November.
I think you have to have some amount of time to let the group really work and really churn on its own a little bit and maybe interact with other groups, but I think it would be just too quick personally. I think maybe at the halfway point you can sort of do a progress check, but I don't know. Those are real details, but I'm just sort of offering that to build on Doug's framework.
I'm kind of with Denise. I think I've just noticed that when you let too much time go by, people tend to be last minute people, so they'll wait until maybe a week before and they'll throw something together and it pushes you back further. Sometimes when you're committed, the shorter time frames on the front end and then extending them once you've gotten some of the work done actually moves you forward faster. I guess part of mine in being in this initiative is I would love to see some type of outcome, some quick wins, or catch some of those low-hanging fruit or something, because I think that Ed, you've said it, that I've heard so much talk that I'm at a point where I want to see some type of action, because I really think that if we don't get on the bandwagon at this time or catch the bull by the horns right now, that it's actually peaking again, that knowledge management is going to slip down again, and eventually it's going to fall into that with all of those other types of things that resurfaced as a different name and then had to go through the same struggles again.
So let's be careful though, because number one, you don't want to create a burning platform where there's not one, and there clearly isn't one, right? We don't need to solve this tomorrow. We do need to be thoughtful about how to do it. We do need to deliver something, and I think the champions or the 2 people, whatever it is that leads these groups, will not let this go to a week before they're supposed to outbrief. So I think there's some personal responsibility involved. I think we're all professionals, and I kind of trust that we can get there from here.
I just wanted to make a point that on the leadership based around this work needs to define phased approach and where the deadlines are in the sand, because if you're working together in a consortium of like-minded folks, direction and expectations need to be well laid out. And I think I'm in tune with shorter is better, because you've got the momentum and the creative juices are going. I say ride it as fast as you can. Even if it's a 60% solution in 5 months is better than 0 at 12.
Absolutely. I agree.
Let's see,
We're talking
May-
about a 6 month, you were suggesting a 6 month window there.